A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Peter approached Jesus and asked him, "Lord, if my brother sins against me, how often must I forgive him? As many as 7 times?" Jesus answered, "I say to you, not 7 times, but 77 times. That is why the kingdom of heaven may be likened to a king who decided to settle accounts with his servants. When he began the accounting, a debtor was brought before him who owed him a huge amount. Since he had no way of paying it back, his master ordered him to be sold, along with his wife, his children, and all his property, in payment of the debt. At that, the servant fell down, did him homage, and said, 'Be patient with me, and I will pay you back in full.' Moved with compassion, the master of the servant let him go and forgave him the loan. When the servant had left, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him a much smaller amount. He seized him and started to choke him, demanding, 'Pay back what you owe.' Falling to his knees, his fellow servant begged him, 'Be patient with me, and I will pay you back.' But he refused. Instead, he had the fellow servant put in prison until he paid back the debt. Now when his fellow servants saw what had happened, they were deeply disturbed and went to their master and reported the whole affair. His master summoned him and said to him, 'You wicked servant, I forgave you your entire debt because you begged me to. Should you not have had pity on your fellow servant as I had pity on you?' Then, in anger, his master handed him over to the torturers until he should pay back the whole debt. So will my heavenly Father do to you, unless each of you forgives his brother from the heart." When Jesus finished these words, he left Galilee and went to the district of Judea across the Jordan. The Gospel of the Lord. Peter's question in today's gospel sounds generous. As many as 7 times? In Jewish teaching, forgiving someone 3 times was already considered an overflow of forgiveness. Peter's offer goes way beyond that. But Jesus isn't interested in numbers. He takes Peter's ceiling and removes it, and he tells Peter, 70 times 7. Which is another way of saying, stop counting. And we do it more often than we think. We measure, we keep score, and we decide who has earned our kindness. The parable makes the point clear. A servant is forgiven an impossible debt, but then refuses to give a fellow servant a much smaller debt. It's not that the first servant's wrong was small, it's that the mercy he received was far greater. St. Maximilian Kolbe lived this teaching in the most extreme circumstances. A conventual Franciscan friar in Poland, he had already built a large friary and publishing center before World War II. And during the war, that friary became a shelter for thousands of refugees, including many Jews. And it was a direct act of resistance against the Nazi regime. And it put him under constant threat. Eventually, arrested and sent to Auschwitz concentration camp, he witnessed the random selection of prisoners for execution after an escape. When one man cried out for his wife and children, Kolbe stepped forward and offered to take his place. It wasn't calculated and it wasn't fair, but it was mercy from the heart. And many of us will never face a choice like Kolbe's. But there are people in the church today who quietly take risks to protect the vulnerable. In Harlington, Texas, down south, women religious, including women from the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the sister, like Sister Rose Patrice Kuhn, have accompanied migrants to immigration court, not as lawyers, not to make speeches, but simply to be there as moral witnesses, so those appearing before the judge know that they are not alone. In every age, there are forces that thrive on fear, division, and control. And Kolbe reminds us that mercy can resist them, not with the weapons of hatred, but with the courage of love. And that kind of resistance, in any time or place, is never wasted.